Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carmine Sabia for Explain America, and I know you guys were as exhausted as I was all these years of being called every name in the book by liberals. Well, Judge Jeanine Pirro, she's had enough of it, and she put her foot down and tore Jessica Tarlov to shreds. Before we get started, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Those little things really help us out, and they help our channel continue to grow. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, please check that address in the lower right-hand corner. It's youtube.com/@explainamerica, and hit subscribe absolutely free. It really helps us out. Fox News can be wild sometimes, especially when you get on the 5. And the 5 is just sometimes a war between Jessica Tarlov and the conservatives. Well, Tarlov, she does her whole anti-Trump shtick. That's her job. It's why she's there. It's why she's there, and she's great at it. She is great at being a lightning rod. You talk about somebody that must have a thick skin. Jessica has a thick skin because she can take that abuse from the Fox News hosts and the fans, and she keeps on going. And I'm sure they're all friends in real life. I know how this business works. But you got to be tough to take the abuse from the people. I take it every day from tens of thousands of liberals. And Jessica must take it, what I take, times 10 from conservatives. So I give her so much credit because I know how hard it can be. And I think for most of us that take that kind of abuse, it gets to be a lot less hard later on because it just becomes white noise. Everybody's shouting the same thing at you and nobody really, you don't care. But she's tough. However, she pulled out an old playing card of the Democrats, and Judge Pirro didn't like it. She accused Pirro, in essence, of being a Russian asset, a Putin lover, a communist, a Russian sympathizer. You've heard it all. You've been called all those things, I'm certain. I've been called all those things, and it's tiresome. Just because you can look at a situation and say, hey, you know what? Both of these guys are kind of bad guys. Doesn't mean you love Russia. It doesn't mean you love Putin. Certainly. I'm not a Putin fan. But not being a Putin fan doesn't mean that I think Zelensky is great. I want you to watch what happened here, and let me know what you think in the comments.
Insolent pig about Zelensky finally got a proper slapdown in the Oval Office. Trump is right. The Kyiv regime is gambling with World War III. So if you are satisfying someone that we all agree is a dictator and authoritarian to that level, don't you think maybe the methods aren't that great? And that's not to say that we don't need to come to the table and say, this is what our peace plan is. These are the territorial lines that we are comfortable with. No one thinks that he's going back to a pre-2014 era. Zelensky himself doesn't think that.
I don't think
speaking
it's smart,
a week
though,
ago.
Jessica,
But you just
worry
made a
about,
case about it
to
being
worry
the
about that somebody else might agree with your perspective. If that's what you believe, if Trump believes, there's no, okay, Putin doesn't want this war. Zelensky doesn't want this war. Trump doesn't want this. So they're all in agreement.
But they're not in agreement because this actually has to come down to the brass tacks of how that country gets split up.
And who holds the cards?
No. I get it.
Zelensky.
Big man, I get it. I heard it. Tommy Tuberville was on TV today saying this is about what Putin and Donald Trump want. This doesn't have to do with Zelensky. But guess what? There are millions of Ukrainians who would beg to differ. No, they're not dead.
Already
they don't
dead.
have a future with him. They do not have a future with Zelensky. Zelensky is dependent upon us.
Do you guys get what you're saying? You're just saying that a sovereign
you're
country.
saying?
Yes, I do. Besides the
what we're
blasphemy
saying
word, which maybe I shouldn't have used, I know exactly what I was saying.
It's time for Ukraine to start building
to become
and stop
part
the killing.
of Russia again.
Nobody's
That's what
making it part of Russia.
You're telling them you can't be part of NATO. You're telling them you don't get your
because that was
territory back.
agreed upon decades ago. And every decade they move closer and closer to Russia, NATO has. And the Crimea and everything else is a response to NATO.
For Russia. NATO encroaching on them.
They are an independent country who believes, and I'm not pro-Russia at all.
Really?
But
it doesn't sound like that.
Don't give me that,
You
really.
Don't give me that.
Don't give me that. You know what? The truth is they stand for this, and they don't want NATO any closer, and it's been decades that that's been agreed to.
They
and for
invaded
decades,
a sovereign nation and
do you remember 3 years ago?
They've stolen their children.
Okay, 3 years ago,
1 second, Jessica. No.
3 years ago, I sat here and I said the Russian-Ukrainian thing is like a family fight across the street. We don't want to go over there and get in between a family fight. We did. It's 3 years later.
I'm still waiting to hear what Jessica's plan is to remove Russia from eastern Ukraine.
What?
We haven't heard that yet from you. So until you tell us what your peace deal is, I think this is probably the better deal.
Really?
Jessica, how are you going to get the Russians out of eastern Ukraine?
You make a deal
If the
with
Ukrainians
them.
you make a deal with them.
But the deal is not giving up all of Ukrainian territory and calling him a dictator when he's clearly not.
Okay, so how do you get them to stop fighting and get Russia to leave the country?
I don't know.
I don't know is your answer. I don't know.
Sorry, I left my 4 stars at home when I came into work. I'm just saying the guy is talking like a Kremlin plant.
If you can't do it militarily, you got to go do it at the negotiating table.
You know what? The truth is that Donald Trump's job is to get a deal. And that means you don't take one side or the other.
He's taking one side.
And their interpretation of his not taking, of his
Brett
not
says we have to go.
criticizing Putin is that he's pro-Putin. He's a deal maker.
Okay.
Glad
Who
we
likes
settled
Vladimir
that.
Putin?
All right. You're like Zelensky. Just be quiet for
Insolent
once.
pig.
Yeah.
Up next, the Democrats might be screwed. Tampon Tim is hinting at a